What's new with Civil 3D 2017? I'm Dave Young, your host for this presentation, as well as a civil application engineer and Autodesk certified instructor with Repro Products. New features come in 4 flavors this year: project management, usability, corridor modeling, as well as collaboration and data exchange. The first segment we're going to look at is project management. This includes things like the reference style utility and many improvements to data references. The Reference Style Manager allows you to have a central repository for your styles, and these can then be pushed out to your working drawings. No longer do you have to remember to drag new styles or modified styles back and forth into your template. They can be changed in the template and pushed out to your working drawings. Cached surfaces. When you do a data reference, it always has to read the external file, just like an XREF. Well, now we can actually cache that surface in our working drawing. This not only increases your performance, but it does allow you to share that working drawing with someone outside your organization, and you don't have to send along the referenced drawing containing the surface. Data shortcut folders. We can create subfolders in our data references and in the prospector in our drawing. So imagine, let's take a look at surfaces. We may have existing grounds surfaces, proposed ground surfaces, as well as several intermediate for grading purposes. If you have a big list of surfaces, it may be difficult to figure out which one you're really looking for. But if you could divide that into subfolders, it makes it much easier to find them. Referencing multiple data shortcuts. You can now grab half a dozen or more alignments from your data reference list and just drag them into your drawing. It will create them all automatically. No more having to do it one at a time. And we can create a shortcut to a corridor. I'll let that one sink in for a little bit. We've never been able to do that before. This allows us to create a corridor in one drawing, data reference it into another, and continue working on cross sections while that corridor may still be being worked on. Once that corridor has been referenced, we can perform cut and fill, material quantity takeoffs, all sorts of fun things. There are a couple of new features in the usability category that are worth talking about. The no site option for feature lines and new pressure pipe content. No site for feature lines allows you to create a feature line in no site. Before, they always had to be in a site, so now we can skip that step. This also allows you to put multiple feature lines in the same no site, and they will not interact with each other. So if you update one of them, does not update the other. Can be very useful. And the expanded pressure pipe parts catalog. We have new content such as PVC finally, and new fittings for valves and even fire hydrants nowadays. Next up is corridor modeling. We can use feature lines as corridor baselines and extract those corridor feature lines back out very easily now. Let's take a look at each one of these features. The feature line as a corridor baseline allows you to, as it sounds, use a feature line as a baseline in a corridor. You don't have to create an alignment and a profile to create the corridor. Imagine doing a simple ditch, not necessarily worth the whole alignment profile step. You can do it from a feature line now. We can extract multiple feature lines from that corridor. No longer do we have to do it one at a time. We can do them all or just select the ones we want to extract. This is great for sending it on to someone else who doesn't have Civil 3D, or you want to send them a very simplified design. Corner cleanup in the corridors. Now when we have tight corners on something, no longer do we get an overlap or butterfly effect in those tight corners. They've improved how that calculates. And the ability to export corridor solids has been increased as well. We have a new feature called property data sets. Those can be included with that export. You have to see this one in action to see how useful that can be. Our last category is collaboration and data exchange. This includes things like property data sets and workflows with Navisworks and InfraWorks. We can now create custom property sets. So when you bring up an object's properties, you can go to the extended data and see more about that object, such as corridor information. What was the region it came from, the alignments, what type of material it is. You can even include calculations for things such as cost. And the ability to work more seamlessly with InfoWorks is greatly improved. So we can do conceptual design in InfoWorks. They've added the ability to do roundabouts and improved how those function and bring those back into Civil 3D for our final engineering design work on those. So the data exchange much faster now. And most importantly, if you have vehicle tracking, a roundabout created in InfoWorks comes into Civil 3D as a corridor and has the vehicle tracking junction data attached to it. So to sum that all up, we've got 4 new categories: project management, usability, corridor modeling, and the collaboration and data exchange. Let's go take a look at how each of these things works. One of the new things for Civil 3D 2017 is the ability to have data references to corridors. In our prospector data shortcuts section down at the bottom, we can see we now have corridors. To add a new one, you would just do this like any other alignment or surface. Simply right-click on data shortcuts and say create data shortcuts. It brings up the list. You can pick what you want to reference. I'm going to reference the none of these things. I'm going to drop all the way down here to corridor and select overall roads. Sounds simple enough, right? So we're going to hit OK, and it's going to do it. Now what it has also done is create a data reference to all of the alignments that we need to make that happen and all of their corresponding profiles, including all of the curb returns that went with it. Now, how do we use this? Well, let's just start a new drawing. Locate my shortcut for corridors and simply drag it into my drawing. And we'll give this a second because there's a lot going on here. It's going to create a corridor reference. Notice it's going to bring in all of the associated road alignments and profiles. So just hit the OK on this and let it do its thing for a few minutes. Now, depending upon the complexity of the corridor and the speed of your computer, that can take anywhere from a few seconds to several minutes. So after about 2 minutes, we can take our cake out of the oven and we end up with something that looks like this. So we now have our corridor referenced into it. In my prospector, scroll up to corridors and we can see that overall roads corridor is actually a data reference in here. And it contains all the baselines as well as all of our alignments now in this drawing as a reference as well, and the corresponding profiles. Everything's brought forward for me. So what else can we do with this? Well, let's go maybe create some sample lots. I want to do cross sections. I want to compute materials, things like that. So it's asking for which alignment. I'm going to pick road A, that's one over here on the west. And we're just going to do a range of stations and accept the defaults from beginning to end. And we get all the little sample lines in there. What else can we do? Well, let's draw some section views. Why not? Because we can. Let's go create some multiple section views, drop them in over here on the side as well. And it's going to go out, create all of our section views. And just like any other data reference, if the source updates, we synchronize this drawing and all my section views would update. Now, just to prove it's possible, let's go take a look at computing materials. First thing I want to do is go to my settings tab as a reminder on how to do this. Roadway materials is going to be my new quantity takeoff criteria. We're going to edit this real quick, and I need to add a new section to this. So I'm getting the pavement, which is going to include pave 1 and pave 2 subassembly shapes, gravels, which is the base and subbase. And I want to add another new material called concrete. That's going to be a type of structure. And we're going to add a couple of corridor shapes called curb and sidewalk. So I've expanded that out a little bit, and we're going to hit OK. So now if I go to my Manage tab, I go, Analyze tab, Compute Materials, hit OK. We're going to change our quantity takeoff criteria to roadway materials. We're going to map objects with the same name. Hopefully I typed everything correctly, and it looks like it did. And hit OK. So it's gone out. It's computing the materials. I'm going to give it just a second. And then let's take a look at the volume report. Select the style sheet, select materials. Here's my material report, and it's showing at each station the quantity of pavement, gravel, and concrete necessary to build this corridor. All of that from a referenced corridor. So not only has Civil 3D had several changes for 2017, so has InfraWorks. And the ability to do roundabouts has been greatly improved and enhanced, and bringing that data back into Civil 3D has been sped up immensely. The new version of InfraWorks 360 comes with the road, bridge, and drainage modules as part of it, no longer separate packages. So let's make use of that, and let's draw in a collector road in here. Just drop something in real quickly, and I'm going to connect this little road over here. Just drag something across and connect it in over here. And we get the idea what's going to go on. So it's going to put in a new road for us, many little tweaking, but I've already gone ahead and done a lot of this work and created a new scenario called Roundabout. Here's my final design. Got a couple of curves in it. Come down here real quick. Notice I've got a bridge put in there. And we're going to drop in a new little road connecting over here. Connect these two so we can access it from here as well. Let's pick us a road, do the same thing, and just connect it from point A to point B. It's that simple. Point A to point B. And it's going to throw in the intersection for us. Now the nice thing about this is it's very intelligent. It kind of knows what's going on. So if I pick my main east-west road here, which I've named east-west connector, I can change this from a 2-lane to a 4-lane with just a couple of clicks. So I added 2 lanes going back, we'll make 2 lanes going forward. So we got that now. Now, the intersection itself, I can add turn lanes, but what I'd really want to do is just change this from a intersection to a roundabout. And there we go. Don't have a whole lot of 4-lane roundabouts about this area, but we can create them pretty easily. Let's take a quick look down here on our intersection. What can we do with that? We can change the design vehicle from a car to, say, a little larger truck. And let's see what, we'll just go with that for now. So getting this data out to Civil 3D. Before we had to close the InfraWorks model, go try to find it, open it up. It was sort of a pain, hard thing to do. Now that whole workflow has been improved greatly. So let's jump back over to Civil 3D. I have set my coordinate system, and now I'm going to insert an InfraWorks 360 model. Let's go say open. Now this is the old way of doing it, right? We would go out, we'd find the model, and they would have to connect to it. But now we have the ability to bring in an IMX file, which makes things a lot faster. So let's go find that IMX file that I've exported from InfraWorks. I didn't show you how that's done, but it's just a single click pretty much. And we are going to refine our selection set. Now, let's just bring in the whole thing. Why not? See what happens. So notice this process. If you've ever done it in the past, this would take several minutes because you'd have to go select a coordinate system. You'd have to select an area, then select the features. Now we just say go get it, and it does it. Now I brought in a few things we don't need, or maybe we do. We don't need this little area over here, so I can delete these. Those are just simple polylines. But we have a surface for existing ground. In fact, let's go up here real quick, take our surfaces and turn all these off. Set them to no display. And we'll see we are left with our alignments used to create that. And we have up here the start of a corridor. This is a corridor. We could look at an object viewer. We've also got a vehicle tracking junction. So my roundabout properties, I can go in here and change anything on here that I need to using the vehicle tracking parameters. And those two are tied together. So getting from InfoWorks to here, get our alignments, get our profiles, get everything we need is pretty quick and easy nowadays. So let's talk next about using a feature line as a corridor baseline. So in this drawing, I've got simple old polylines from my road, center lines, my buildings, the pond, little ditch over here. I want to pick all of these things because I can do it all at once. I want to create a feature line from these objects. Good enough. Back to the Home tab, feature line from objects, site. I want to make a new site real quick. I'm just going to call this feature corridor. Hit OK. And we're going to erase the existing, not bother assigning elevations to it yet. So I want to do some actual grading on here now. So I've got a few parameters that I know I want to use. So let's grab this one, take a look at its elevation editor. It's all at elevation 0. I'm going to grab that first point. Yep, station 0. I'm going to get its elevation from the surface, get it from site plan existing. And then we're going to do some really quick grading on here because it's easier to do this sometimes than it is as a profile. So we've set some grades on this feature line. Let's do this another feature line because it's so easy. Let's grab this feature line over here. So that one, notice it already has an elevation set at 1229.14. That's coming off of our west road over here. So at the other end, I can grab its elevation from surface as well. And then because it's so easy, I'm going to set a constant grade in between all of these. And it sets all minus 2.57. Elevation editor on it. Notice we have a beginning and an end elevation. Set a constant grade in between those two as well. So now we've got elevations on all these. Let's go create a corridor. So to create a corridor, I always go with site plan for now. The baseline type, instead of alignment and profile, I'm setting that to feature line. I can do this feature corridor for site, and the feature line list drop-down list is blank. So I have to go pick these manually. So we'll hit the select from drawing button. We're going to grab the feature line on the west road right there. It's asking for a name. Probably should give it one. West Road center line, something like that. Hit OK. And what assembly I want to do through this, I'm going to do primary road part section daylight left. And what that's going to do is put basically my road up through there and daylighting on the left. And we're going to target that down to existing site plan. And let's see what we get. So I've got the start of a corridor without having a single alignment in here. No center line alignments, but yet I have a corridor from a feature line. So we can come back, we can add another one just because we can. Corridor properties, parameters, let's add another baseline. Picking a feature line. We have to go pick it from the drawing again like we did before. We'll grab that one. East and south. I'm horrible at names, but we'll go with that. Hit OK. And real quick, we're going to add a region. I always go with the daylight left on this one again. Get the idea, right? Nothing we haven't all seen before, and I forgot to set a surface to target to, but that's okay. And that's how we do it. So another one we want to look at while we're in here is the corner cleanup. Okay, so here we have a kind of a sharp corner based off of a corridor. We'll grab that corridor right there. And if I was to make a change to the assembly being used for this, such as somewhere in here, there's an assembly for curb returns. Okay, so this is basically a parking lot design. There's an alignment running around the outside edge of that. If I was to add a sidewalk, that would generally add a lot more data out there. So let's see what happens. Let's go grab our tool palettes. Let's find a sidewalk, attach it to right here. And if we want to, we can add some daylighting to this as well. I'm not sure what the others use. Let's go with the daylight general. We'll put it in right about there. Now all the warnings are popping up because it doesn't like where I have Civil 3D installed. That's okay. We'll just go with this for now. We can close those tools. So let's go back, take a look at our corridor. Our corridor is out of date because I made a change to, apparently I didn't make a change to the right one. Let's take a look at corner cleanup on a drawing. So in this drawing, I've got a baseline running around the outside edge of a parking lot to create my curb line. And we have a nice 90-degree corner right here, and it's doing pretty good. But what happens if we change our assembly? So right now it's just using the simple assembly with a curb and gutter on it. Okay, I want to add an urban sidewalk to that. So let's go say urban sidewalk. We're going to add it into right there. And I didn't check my parameters close enough, but let's say, now I've got two of them. Let's grab the first one here. The subassembly properties. We'll make this just a little bit wider. Let's go with maybe an inside boulevard width of 4 feet. Sidewalk's going to be about 3 foot wide, and maybe an outside boulevard width of 2 feet. We're okay, and I want to rebuild this. Normally we'd expect to see a bow tie effect going on here in the corner. Now we don't. It handles it just fine. So next up, pressure pipe content. We've got a lot of new stuff. Let's go to modify our pressure pipe network. Take a look at our catalog and see what we have here. We have flanged, HDPE, mechanical joints, push-ons, PVC, and steel ductile iron pipe, basically. So what can we do with all this? Well, let's make a new list. So let's go back down here to settings. Let's find our pressure network parts list, and let's make a new one called PVC. Now, before I do that, I have to go back here real quick because I don't think I actually set it. Yep, it is set to PVC. I was good. So new parts list, and I'm not going to do a whole parts list here, but you'll get an idea what's going on. Go to pressure pipes. We can add a material, PVC. And then we can add all of our sizes. Okay, same thing for fittings. Add a new type. We've got crosses, elbows, T's. Now these are all going to be ductile iron. Not a big deal. We do have some PVC elbows and T's as well. Let's do a reducer out of ductile iron and PVC elbows and T's. And we just go through and add those parts here as well. Now, under the appearances list, let's see what we can add. We've got lots and lots of different valves, different body types. Now they're going to look a lot alike in the preview, but lots of different ratings we can use. And my favorite down at the bottom, we have a hydrant that actually looks like a hydrant. So this is how we would build our parts list based upon these new materials. Now, as far as actually using it, okay, it's going to come into our drawing, and for some reason, we've got all the fittings down here. They don't look well in our 3D view. Real quick and easy to fix that. And it seems to be something just on my computer, but I'm going to my settings. For this drawing, let's find my pressure pipes, find a style being used. Simply edit that, hit apply, okay, and they come back. And we can see these actually look halfway decent. Fire hydrant looks like a fire hydrant. Okay, I think that T in there might be the wrong size. That's why it looks really huge. But this new pressure content looks pretty decent. Corridor feature line extraction. We've created corridors. We can create corridors from feature lines. We can then turn right around and extract those feature lines from here. So let's grab a corridor. Zoom in a little bit, grab that corridor. And we have the ability to grab feature lines from the corridor. So I want to pick on that. It wants me to select a corridor feature line. I don't want to do it one at a time anymore. I have the ability to do all. It's going to then bring up a little dialog box and allows me to pick what I want. So I want to minimize all this stuff, roll them up, because I don't need to see each individual line, but I do want to be able to maybe go get a few of them, such as I want the sidewalk ins, sidewalk outs, crown, and back a curb. Maybe I want daylights, maybe I don't. Let's grab those as well. So I'm only grabbing certain feature classes, I guess. We hit extract. I want to say join these feature lines in adjacent regions where they're touching each other. I want them joined together. So we hit extract. Let's do a quick select. Out of our quick select, I want to look in the entire drawing for, and you got to scroll all the way down to the auto corridor feature line. Let's get all of these. Now I can do a W block. And actually, that's the corridor. The corridor is still referenced in there. Let's erase it. And we should see, there we go, just the lines I want. So there's my daylight, there is my sidewalk, back a curb, center line, and it gets it for that entire corridor. So speaking of feature lines, when I create a new one, so here I have a feature line from a building. If I bring up its properties, we see that this particular feature line does not have a site assigned to it. And let's grab this feature line right here. This one is in site 1. Now they're in different sites, not a big deal. But the fact that I can have this one without a site just makes it kind of nice. I don't have to create a site just for random feature lines. And because they are in different sites, if I change one of them, it won't affect the others. Create a new feature line. Let's see what I get. I have the ability to do site. Set that to none. Okay, one of my favorite things in here is the ability to use reference styles. We have reference data. Why not reference styles? Let's go open up my template file real quick. And we'll see what's in here. So in this drawing, I've got surfaces. Surface styles, I've got a surface style called contours every 6 inches. Profile styles, we've got one in here called city standard. So they're in here. Great, what am I going to do with this? In this particular drawing, let's go to the Manage tab. Under Styles, we have Reference Manager. With this Reference Manager, we can attach a template file to it. So I want to attach this template file to this particular drawing, hit update, and it's going to go out and it's doing its thing. And it's kind of checking, hey, what's out there, what's in here, let's make those changes. But in a second, kind of like the import styles tool would bring all the styles in, the reference style manager does that as well. The difference being, if I go to look at my surface styles in this drawing, we see no display, border only. A lot of these have a little reference symbol in front of them. So I've got that for alignments, I got that for profiles, here's city standard, all that good stuff. We'll see how that actually affects my drawing. Let's take this particular profile, and we're going to set its style to be city standard. Okay, which is kind of a magenta dashed line. Now, back in my template file, if I was to change that profile style, city standard, I'm just going to do something simple, change it from magenta to, let's say, bright yellow, and from phantom to continuous, and save this drawing. Not that big a deal yet, but if I go back to my Mozart Design with Corridor, as soon as I get back here, if I go back to my Manage reference, we see that this needs to be reloaded. So it's detected that my source is newer. So I'm going to click on Update and keep your eye on this line as it goes on. It's going to go out, kind of like the import, see what's different, bring in all the changes. And in just a second, we should see that magenta line change to yellow, and there it is. So no longer do you have to worry about dragging a new style into 15, 20, or 100 new working drawings. Reference Style Manager will take care of that for you. So let's take a look now at some of the property set data we can get out of Civil 3D. Now you're probably wondering, what's this property data set he's talking about? Well, let's take a look at it and then maybe start to make some sense. And we'll see how we can use that. I've got a corridor here, and one of the things we can do now is extract solids. We could do that for a couple of releases, but we've got some extra capabilities. I want to extract the solids for all the corridor. So here's basically, we can pick what we want to extract. I want the entire thing. There's lots of pieces and parts that are going to be extracted. Luckily, there's a layer name template that's set up to create this. But my next tab is one I really want to look at, and that's the property data. I can attach data to these solids. Okay? So I can attach the corridor name, description, the region name, the alignment, user data if I had any, or corridor shape information. What code is it? Is it pavement? Is it sidewalk? Concrete, that sort of thing. I can get the volumes for all of these things. That's some pretty powerful information coming from Civil 3D. If you've got Civil 3D, you've got the corridor, you can get that out of there. Not a big deal, but imagine all those others who don't have Civil 3D. So our next tab, output object type, we got AutoCAD solids based on corridor sampling. That's what we want to do. I want to insert these into a new drawing. Let's go save it somewhere. Let's call this output 2. And we'll click on save and extract solids. This doesn't take too long, but it does take a few seconds. So we're going to let it do its thing. So in the meantime, kind of wondering, hey, how useful is that? Well, let's jump over to Navisworks real quick. Another one of these products that comes through your suite you may or may not use, but general contractors love Navisworks. They can bring together disciplines very easily. So let's, in Navisworks, append that new output 2 drawing. Now, I didn't do anything really to get to this point. Okay, I started with a corridor, I exported the solids, and there's my corridor. So what can I do with this? Well, if I just kind of hover over one of these things, it tells me the corridor name is site plan and the corridor shape, volume. Just, I got 83 cubic yards of asphalt or whatever. I could add more information to that. Over here I've got a little curb running around there I could pick. It's got a 345 for a volume. And that's information that was available from Civil 3D, now available in my AutoCAD drawing or even in Navisworks. So what else can we do with that? Well, we can create our own custom properties. So let's jump back to Civil 3D. So now we want to take a look at defining a property set definition. So on our Manage tab, far right hand is Define Property Sets. So we click on it, dialog box pops up, and we can see all of the property sets currently defined in my drawing. Okay, so we have one here called Current Corridor Property Data User Defined. I could rename that if I want to. Let's just call this Corridor Info. That doesn't let me rename it, so let's just make a new one. Why not? It'd be easier. Now, what does this apply to? Well, I really only want this to apply to 3D solids. So somewhere in the list, way over the far right, is solids 3D. Okay. I don't want this property to be applied to lines or arcs or text in AutoCAD. I just want 3D solids in AutoCAD. And then for its definition, I can add bits and pieces of information. So let's say I want to add a new one called phase. This is going to be a piece of text where you can type in phase 1, phase 2. We can do real numbers or integers if we want to, counts, quantities. Let's make a unit cost and call this one a real number, cost per unit. And I want to add an automatic property. And it's going to look at the 3D solids, and I want to get what layer those are on. And then finally, there's one more thing I want to add, and that is a function. So I can apply properties to an object and have it do cost calculations for me if I want to. We'll just call this cost. Okay, so the formula down here, we're going to take a look at what we have down here. We've got maybe some corridor shape information. There should be one called volume. Actually, we need to do this. Do a total cost. Get my typing right. Total cost equals unit cost times, multiply that by the volume. So that should give us some good numbers. Okay, so we've got formulas in there. We've got all sorts of things, and we're hit OK. And we'll close this. So let's go to our properties window real quick. Let's grab all of these solids. And this will work, doesn't have to be just solids like this, but in here under extended data, set this to just solids, 3D solids. We don't see any extended data. We got some corridor model information, corridor shape information, but we don't have that new corridor info one I just created. So we have to add a property set to it. Corridor info, we hit it, okay. Now we'll give it a second, and it's going to come back and populate this properties window with that new data. So what good does that do me? Well, if I go look at an individual object, such as my pavement in here, well, that's actually a subbase because it's on classification code of granulars. Code name is subbase, but I have a volume down here, my corridor info, and my unit cost. Something's wrong with my formula, but that should have calculated a cost for me. So if I go back to Navisworks, I want to open up another one I've done. And Navisworks model is already done. Now this one I've already applied materials to it, already created the tooltips for it, and now back in Navisworks, I can see that total cost field and the volume field and things like that showing up in here in Navisworks. So total cost is $88,439 at $450 per unit, and that data is now available coming straight out of my AutoCAD corridor. And one last thing we'll want to take a look at is the ability to cache a data reference surface. So back over here, I've got a little bit of line work drawing. I want to add a surface to it, so I go to my prospector, surfaces, existing ground site plan. I'm just going to drag that into my drawing. So we drop it in here, go with that. Now, if I go back to my prospector, I'm going to make my prospector a little bit bigger. Go back up to surfaces. We got another tab or another column over here that says that this existing ground surface is reference only. If I was to click on it, I could say store the geometry in the drawing. And that's something you can set up in your commands in the settings tab if you want to. So it's automatically storing it in your drawing. Storing in your drawing is going to make your drawing much bigger, but you don't have to change this after the fact. So now when I save this drawing, that surface definition is going to be part of it, but still referenced. So if my reference drawing changes, so does my surface in this drawing. Let's go back to my data shortcuts. I've got some alignments down here. I'm not going to do all of these, but I can grab road A, B, C, and D, 4 of them at a time. Click, hold, drag, and drop. It's going to drag all of those alignments into my drawing. We're going to give it a second because it has to think a little bit on each one of them, apply the labels, whatever my default styles are. But it's that simple to create multiple references in a drawing. And here they all are over here. Looks like my proposed lots don't quite match up with my alignments, so a little work to be done here. Okay, what else can we do? Well, let's do one more surface. Data reference for a surface. Let's get the site plan road. This is the finished area. Drag it in here. We're going to give this one a style of contours 105 design. And now it's sitting over here. So back to my prospector. Underneath surfaces, I can do it under any one of these. Notice I have a folder called design and existing. So my existing ground site plan, I can take this and drag it up into the design folder. Same with the site plan road. This is, whoops, I did that wrong. I need to put the existing ground under the existing, and the, now see, I've got these exactly backwards now. We'll drag them back out and then put them where they need to go. Yeah, got them all mixed up, but you get the idea, right? So I've got a design folder, an existing folder. I can make a new folder under here. Right click on create surface, and instead of create surface, let's create a folder called a grading. So all of my intermediate grading surfaces can be placed in here. So once I'm done, I just minimize these folders. Don't need to see the existing. All I need to see is my design, and it makes a much simpler list to work with. That same thing can happen down here under my data references. I can create folders underneath there. Existing, we'll take the existing ground site plan and drag it into that folder. Great way to manage your folders and things like that.